If you are highly sensitive and you've been feeling so overwhelmed by AI lately, then this video is for you. This is not going to be your typical 5 steps how-to or how I changed my life overnight, but it's more of an authentic, vulnerable video where I share my own experience as a highly sensitive person and share some thoughts that hopefully by the end of this video will inspire you and give you some sense of guidance and grounding in this AI world. Because let's face it, this is going crazy. This is not a personal issue that some of us are facing, but it is starting to be a worldwide crisis that more and more people are starting to feel overwhelmed by. And it's not just us highly sensitive people, but it is almost everyone at this point. This video is not scripted and not really edited either, so it is just me talking and rambling, and that is the point, because of course I could have put my thoughts into ChatGPT, for example, and then structured them and then have a very clear outline, but I feel like that would be missing the point of this whole video, because being human is messy. It's not structured, it's not linear, but it is spiraling and messy and ups and downs, and I think that's what I also wanted to convey in this video. And before we dive in, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Wendy. I am a Reiki master teacher, and I guide people to reconnect with their inner voices so that they can live a more happy, balanced, and authentic life. And if that's something that you want to have for yourself, then stick around, subscribe to my channel, and let's dive in. I'm sure you've had situations yourself where you were looking at something and it took you a while to realize that all of that was actually AI. And I think it is very difficult for many of us to now tell the difference between what is even real and what is artificial intelligence. And that honestly is scary. Last week, for example, my mother-in-law, she had a new iPad because she wanted to look at her Pinterest board. She's always looking for garden inspiration on there, which is super cute. And we were just helping her install the app and, just personalize it a little bit, pick the topics that she was most interested in. And I could not believe how much AI content was on this app. And what I could even less believe was the fact that my mother-in-law, who's like 69, yeah, she's 69. So she's not that young anymore, but she's also not like super old. But she could really not tell the difference between AI and like real legit content. And at first I thought, okay, maybe it's because she's not a digital native and this whole concept is new to her. And then we did a test, my boyfriend and my best friend and I. And let me tell you, my best friend, she's a videographer, so she knows quite a bit about how actual natural videos are supposed to feel. And we took a test where you basically go through a bunch of pictures or videos, and every time you have to say if it's AI or if it's real. And we failed miserably. I was pretty good at the picture ones where it was just human faces, because I think that I have a very important skill that is maybe the most important thing that you can have in this time. And I will share that in a bit. But my friend, for example, she failed miserably. And then with the videos, she was a bit better. I failed more at those. It was just really bad. And that was eye-opening for me, that this is not just something that my mother-in-law is overwhelmed by or elderly people, but it's something that even people like us who think that we actually can tell the difference between real and AI are also highly affected by. And it got to a point where I felt like, I don't know, the whole world just felt so heavy, because what's the point in any of this, Like I was like really starting to have like thoughts like that, like nihilistic thoughts where I was just questioning the existence of content in general and just couldn't make sense of any of it. And now let me get back to the skill that I mentioned before, a skill that I have that I think is so important. And it's a skill that everybody has, but we have lost touch with it. And that skill is our intuition. It is this inner voice that is always there, this inner guiding light that shows us the way, our gut feeling, this inner sensation that helps us to pick between different options or shows us the way, what feels right, what feels wrong. And I think that that is honestly the most important skill moving forward that we need to have as human beings. And now you might wonder, okay, but like, how do I train my intuition? Like, how do I become more intuitive? It's true that some people are more intuitive, like naturally, but it's definitely a skill that we all have. And like any other skill, it is something that you can train. And what I mean by that is it's actually super simple and super difficult at the same time. Because how do we train our intuition? How do we deepen our connection with ourselves? It's by time spent in silence, time spent alone, whether it is in meditation, going for a walk, just sitting outside and looking at nature, observing things, really feeling our emotions, listening to our thoughts. And this is a big paradox because we live in a world where everybody is trying to grab our attention. And if you have made it to this point in this video, you are a very aware person already, because most of us, we have an attention span of like maybe 2 seconds. And it's legit because there is so much stuff out there and we do have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our time, our energy. But at the same time, we are constantly out there scanning things, consuming stuff, watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading bits, hearing people talk, watching ads, whatever it is, like watching Netflix. You know, we are consuming all the time, and all of this is actually distracting us from ourselves, from our inner voice, from our intuition. So why is it so hard to just sit in silence? It's because our nervous system is more used to being on fire all the time than to just rest. I think that at this point in history, rest feels like a big threat to many people. So many of us, we tie our self-worth to our productivity, or we think that we have to hustle all the time, you know, because otherwise we are falling off a cliff and we are going to die. And I'm not even joking. I know this feeling myself. Sometimes it feels like, you know, like back in the 90s, those two-dimensional games like Super Mario and stuff, where the background just started moving, and if you didn't run fast enough, the display would just fade into black and then the game was over. And I think that's a feeling that many people have. And AI is really just making those things move in an even faster way. Okay, so now you know that everybody is intuitive, and intuition is something that we can develop even further. We can train that. But how do we go about it? Now, it doesn't have to be huge steps right away. Maybe you can just start going to the bathroom without taking your phone. Or maybe you can resist the impulse to ask ChatGPT every single little question. Maybe you can just sit there and just, you know, observe what's coming up. And even though I literally do this for a living, like I literally teach people to work with their inner voice for a living, because I'm a Reiki master teacher. So I teach energy healing. I help people to reconnect to that inner wisdom. I know that it is hard, and I know that it is harder than ever before, because in this modern world, there are so many distractions all the time. I guess my point is just slow down. Let's all slow down. I can share a couple of things with you that I did that really helped me. So like I said, I'm not taking my phone to the bathroom anymore. I installed an ad blocker on my browser. I installed a plugin that if I go on YouTube, for example, my screen is black. Like there's just a search bar and I don't see anything beside that. So I don't get distracted and start watching something that I didn't even want to watch in the first place. I went through all my settings, like Pinterest, for example. It's very hidden, but there is a setting where you can check off a box that you don't want to see any AI content. Now, I know that is just for content that is explicitly made by AI. I'm well aware of the fact that there is way more content out there where it doesn't tell you that it's AI, but it's, one step in a good direction. I also stopped asking ChatGPT so many personal questions. I don't know about you, but for me in the beginning, I really liked the fact that it felt like I had, like a coach that was just like living inside my phone. And whenever there were thoughts coming in my mind, I could ask ChatGPT and be like, hey, I experienced this and that, and now I'm thinking this and that. Can you help me make sense of it? And that worked really well, I have to say, because I'm a trained coach myself. So I know that a lot of the thought processes and the techniques that ChatGPT uses are great. But what I noticed also was that I, to some degree, became dependent on an artificial bot that doesn't even exist. And so I really decided to let go of that again. And even if I am overwhelmed by thoughts or I cannot make sense of something, that's okay. And what I do instead is that I go to a coaching session, or I call a friend, or I talk to my boyfriend. Really consciously foster those human connections. Yeah, and meditate. I know it's hard to pick on meditation. Maybe I will make a video how to get started with meditation as an absolute beginner, because I know that it can be terrifying, especially now when we are all used to being in our monkey minds and it is just thoughts nonstop. And just get off social media. I've never used Instagram personally, at all. I used to have a professional account for a while, but I never really posted because it just didn't feel, it just didn't make me feel good. And I think, maybe that's the point of my video. You can always say no. You can literally say no to things and decide to opt out. And that doesn't mean that you have to be like me and quit the city and live in the countryside or even move to the woods or whatever. But you can just say no. You can refuse to be on social media. You can put time limits on your phone. You can delete some accounts, like subscriptions that you currently have that are simply not bringing any value, but that are more like stressing you out and adding so much more stuff to our already busy lives.